Hey, everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the evening. Joining me, as always, is Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat reporter. It is Charlie O'Connor. Chuck, it's one of those days where last night I'm like, what the hell are we doing tomorrow? When I woke up this morning, I was like, all right, I'm going to get in there, start doing some work. We'll put some things together. Then, I get here usually around 11. About 11:15 today, things start popping off, and it's nothing we really didn't know about over the weekend. Nasty Knuckles put out the clip of the show that I think dropped or is going to drop today with Danny.
It dropped this morning.
It has come out, so if you want to see the full thing, we're going to talk about the entire Kolosov situation, all the Askarov. We can't call them rumors because it's just the excitement.
The Kolosov stuff is actually news and worthy of serious discussion. The Askarov stuff is truly just Twitter generated speculation and excitement.
It is, but I do think whenever we talk about trades or any of that stuff, it's always the way we have been putting in Trevor Zegras as okay, he's the idea of if they're going to go get a young, potential 1C, it's okay, Zegras or Zegras-like player. I do think the Askarov thing, maybe they should pursue him, maybe not. We're going to talk all about that. I do think there's an interesting conversation to be had about going and getting that guy, a guy like that, to fill a position, to upgrade a position of potential need. We'll get into all that. We are going to talk goalies to start, though. I had to start by explaining we are going to talk about the interesting thing. But I want to catch up from something on Friday, and it does stick with our goaltending theme here. I got a DM. So on Friday, we did the RF Around Friday topic. It was guys with multiple stints with the Flyers. And Brian Boucher is one of my favorite Flyers ever. I completely forgot. I got a DM from JCamps10, Joe, about Brian Boucher. Actually had 4 stints in the Philadelphia organization, and he sent me a Hockey DB screenshot. So in 07-08, he actually signed an AHL deal with the Phantoms. Never came up, and then eventually signed an NHL deal in San Jose. That's how he ended up there. And 2 years later, the Flyers signed him on July 3rd for what was his third stint, not his second, with the Fly. I just thought this was all very interesting to me.
I truly do love the commitment to correctness that our listeners have.
He just wanted to reach out and say, I'm pretty sure he had 4 stints with the team, sent me the screenshot, and I said, you know what, you're right. I was only looking at Brian Boucher's hockey reference, and then I checked his transaction log, and it's, he did sign in July of 2007 an AHL deal, but never played with the Flyers that season, but 2 years later came back. I just wanted to get all that taken care of. Little house cleaning from Friday. I like having a running thread from the last show to the next one. And now we will discuss the pertinent information.
Well, we're staying in the goaltending category.
Exactly. I figured it fit. With he's a goalie and everything, but the Alexei Kolosov situation, we will start there.
Yeah, that's the big stuff.
That's the starting point.
The Askarov stuff is more conceptual, and I think it more is about what you think the Flyers' philosophy should be during their rebuild. The Kolosov stuff is relevant information right now.
Conceptual, that's exactly the word I was going for that I could not think of, so just moved on earlier. That is actually, philosophical, conceptual. That's what I was going for there. But we will start with Alexei Kolosov. And the full episode, if you want to check it out today, Nasty Knuckles came out. But over the weekend, they put out a clip of Danny discussing, and I don't want to play it because like it's their show. That seems incorrect. But everyone's seen it at this point.
He's changed agents. His new agent is Dan Milstein, who is one of like 2 or 3 agents / agencies that tends to represent most of the Russian players. Like there was the Gold Star training event before the draft where it's like all these Russians come over because they're all Gold Star clients. I believe it was down in Florida about a week and a half before the draft. This is one of the agents / agencies that specializes in Russian players. And generally speaking, if a player changes agents, it means he's not satisfied with how things are going, and he's been convinced that someone new, in this case, Dan Milstein, can do a better job of resolving whatever is bothering this particular player. So when that pops out, when Danny says that, and it was confirmed this morning by multiple people, confirmed that, and then I got it confirmed as well, that Dan Milstein is indeed Alexei Kolosov's new agent. When that comes out, you just assume that something is going to come out of this. And we had some news. I mean, it was Kevin Kurz who was first on it and basically reported that a league source had told him that Kolosov would prefer to be loaned back to Minsk, back to the KHL for one more season. So this would be the second loan of his entry level second year of the loan of the entry level contract. Because year one he was loaned. His entry level contract actually started last season, but the plan was always to loan him back over for one more year. And then he's going to come over for years 2 and presumably 3, assuming year 2 went well. Now, apparently, according to the report, he would like to go back for another year. The Flyers are not particularly excited about that.
That's idea. Kevin Kurz at 11:16. He tweeted, "No word if that's something the Flyers would be interested in." And then, like an hour later, 12:04, and he's like, the Flyers don't want to do that.
And I got confirmation as well.
I saw you tweet it right at about the same time.
Basically,
I just saw his first.
No, Kevin was first. But basically, the Flyers' view of this is it's best for Kolosov's development to come over now. And I think they make a reasonable point. Number one, he spent multiple years in the KHL. He spent the first year of his loan in the KHL. And he's under contract. The Flyers are paying him. So their view is, okay, the first year's fine, but year 2 was always the plan. You came over at the end of last season with the intention of this being a test run for the first full year, and now you've changed your mind. We want you over here now. We want you to be working with our people. Also, and this is something that is, it might be a little overblown, but maybe not that much. Like, Carson Bjarnason is on a contract, and this is going to be his second year in juniors. He's presumably going to turn pro, in 2025, 2026. So then suddenly, even if this the way this plays out is Kolosov is loaned, stays in the KHL for one more year, and then comes over, which I think is, and we can talk about this, I don't know if that is even remotely a certainty, if we just are then repeating this all over again next summer, if the Flyers were to acquiesce to him and give him another loan. But if Kolosov were to come over in year 3 of the ELC, then suddenly it's not Kolosov and Cal Peterson. It's Kolosov and Carson Bjarnason. You have 2 legitimate prospects in the AHL, most likely. And suddenly they're looking at it as this is Kolosov's year. That this is Kolosov's developmental year where we can work with him, we can entirely focus on him at the AHL level, and he can prove to us that he potentially deserves to be in the NHL the following year. You push it back another year, suddenly it starts getting a little muddled. So the Flyers don't want to do it. I don't know how this is going to play out because Danny Briere and the Flyers' stance through this entire thing has been, dude, you're under contract. You willingly signed a contract with us. We loaned you for 1 year. We don't have to loan you a second time. We are under no obligation to do that. You signed a contract. You are obligated, if you want to be paid, to show up to camp. And I don't know how this is going to play out. Is it possible the Flyers ultimately cave after they talk to Kolosov or they talk to Milstein or whatever? It's possible, sure. But it's not a guarantee. Maybe he just doesn't show up, and then the Flyers, have grounds to punish him or terminate the deal, but apparently they don't want to do that either. So we're basically just in a standstill here. I think this is now more or less a staring contest to see which side is going to blink first. I
get the Flyers stance here. Hey, we're paying you. We want you in the organization. I think the best point you made there is this is the year, Cal Peterson, who cares? We get to have you here, and we're focused on you.
Cal Peterson is just a guy.
He's there.
He's a guy.
They're paying him.
Yeah, they got to pay him.
You get to completely focus for 1 year on Alexei Kolosov before hopefully Bjarnason comes over and he's in the AHL and all that. I fully get that. I think that is the most reasonable part of this. That said, though, how many top 5 organizational prospects are we just going to piss off, piss away? Like, if this is ultimately what is going to be best for him mentally, who cares if he's playing for the Phantoms? Like, what are we, some goalie? Like, oh yeah, well, we have this where we turn out goal. Like, no, we don't. Like, I don't see how that's best for him other than getting acquainted with potential teammates, being in the organization. He's here. We're not worried about that part anymore. Like, all that makes sense. But ultimately, if this is what he wants, I don't see what the Flyers get out of, like, forcing him into an uncomfortable situation.
It's a fair point. I think... And this is not coming from any inside information. This is more just me speculating. I suspect that if the Flyers could be 100% certain that if we loan him back over for one more year, he's going to come over in year 3, and then we'll figure out. I think that they might grumble. I'm sure they do. They do honestly believe that his development would be best served if he comes over now versus next season. They might be okay with it. I think the way they're looking at it, though, is like, okay, if we loan him a second year, this dude ain't never coming.
That's fair. The thing that intrigues me about the whole situation is, while I kind of might get, like, he doesn't want to be in the AHL, he'd rather just stay home. Yeah, if I had a chance to make the NHL club, sure, but I don't, because you just paid your backup $3.5 million, 3.25, whatever the hell it is. And Sam Arison is, like, this is the year we find out about Sam Arison.
It sure seems like Kolosov really didn't like Allentown.
Yeah, that's real. But, like, if this wasn't the situation, his path would be more blocked because he signed his ELC and Carter Hart was still in the organization. Now, who knows what got said behind closed doors to him?
Right.
But, like, if Carter Hart's here, he's the starter, and we have Arison, maybe Fedotov. If he comes, maybe not. They just give up on that. I don't know. But, like, his path was always blocked for this season. Sure. Whether the Carter Hart thing happens or not, or they go in this direction that they went in, like, he was never going to have this chance to, like, oh, yeah, I'm going to play in the... No, you're not, probably. We've talked in the past. We had a whole goalie day, basically, and we were like, we think the plan, and you, with your information, think the plan is Arison and Fedotov this year, figure out what both of them are, and then a basically open competition 3 ways with those two and Kolosov a year from today.
Right.
That makes sense to me. Cool. Yeah. But if that's the way it is, just let him play in the K. It's not as if that's some shit league. Like, we're not sending him over to Berlin or something, you know, like, where he's not going to develop. Like, he's going to be with people who speak his language, and that's something I really want to get to because that worries me. Oh, well, we can't just call him. He doesn't speak English. Like, okay. Okay. But, like, if he's going to develop over there, maybe not the same. You want your hands on him. Of
course you do.
You want to see him up close. All that. I get that. But, like, if it's ultimately all about a season from now, him having a chance to be in the NHL, kick the can down the road and tell him a year from now we need you in camp and you're in an open competition for the NHL.
And maybe after the Flyers meet with Milstein and maybe Kolosov, at least over like Zoom or whatever, because obviously he's overseas at the moment, maybe they get convinced that that is the right move ultimately. Like, just because this is a standoff right now doesn't mean it's going to remain a standoff. One side could cave. Kolosov could change his mind and say, okay, you guys aren't going to give, so I'm going to come over because I want to eventually want to play in the NHL. Or the Flyers could give, and they could say, all right, if we get some sort of like real assurances that we can trust that this truly is the last year, that, you know, you're really going through, you know, some serious, you know, anxiety about this, and you just don't feel like you're ready, you know, mentally, you don't feel like you're mature enough, whatever. Maybe the Flyers cave. I don't think it's impossible that the Flyers cave on this, but I do think the Flyers, I understand why at this point the Flyers are taking a hard line, because their view of the situation is, we already loaned you once, okay? And as recently as this past March, when we were working to get you over here, you were on board with the plan of you're going to play in the AHL, because it's not like when they brought him over here, they stuck him in the NHL. They sent him to Allentown because they communicated to him that the plan was next season he was going to be playing in Allentown. And they wanted him to get used to playing where he was going to play the following season. So clearly, as recently as March, that March is the third month of the year, it's the 8th month of the year. As recently as 5 months ago, Kolosov was on board with this plan. Now Kolosov is having second thoughts, and the Flyers' view is that, like, not to be harsh, but kind of like tough shit. Like, we're doing what we can to, if you come over, we will do everything we can to make your life in Allentown as comfortable as we possibly can. But at some point, you got to do what you promised to do, both in signing the contract and also in agreeing to this plan in the first place. That's where they stand. Now, maybe they could be convinced otherwise, but in the here and now, I understand why the Flyers are kind of like, nah, we're not just going to like fold the minute that you decide you don't want to do something you said you were going to do. I get it.
I get them, and especially like for the precedent, they want to at least see if they can make things work on their terms. I just think, like, if you think this guy has the upside and is worth this headache of like loaning him the first year, but like if he could be great for you, you need to do what you can to make it work. All that said, though, like I get that he would still be third in the pecking order for this season. I get that he'd still be riding the bus in the AHL. Could we avoid this situation in the future by bringing the Phantoms back to Philly?
Yes.
And just have them.
That would be so much easier for everyone.
Yeah, just like have, like, you get to live in a major metropolitan area. You're not stuck in Allentown by yourself. Could all this be avoided? And this is no disrespect to the fine people in Allentown, and the PPL Center is a great building, all that stuff. It seems as if one of the major points of contention here is like, I don't want to go live in fucking Allentown. Could we change the entire perception of our AHL organization if we just brought them back here? And it's like, back in the day, it was, you look across the parking lot and be like, there's the goal. I play in this brown building. I want to play in that white one. The goal is literally the goal is literally across the street.
It was way more convenient for everyone. I rarely do this. I rarely flat out call out people in the comment section. But we got Philly Original saying 15 minutes in, and these guys don't mention who's right. Like, I've literally said Dan Milstein's name like 7 times. If you've actually listened to all 15 minutes, you weren't listening. Sorry, dude.
He said it. He actually said
I've
those
actually
words.
said his name on multiple occasions, in like not just once, multiple times. So if you're going to criticize me for something I either did or didn't do. Don't just make shit up. Thank you.
Maybe that commenter could choose a chill mindset. Maybe perhaps he needs to choose to chill. Listen. I get it. Because between work, social media, life, the world, it's no wonder we're just kind of more worked up than ever. Coors Light celebrates rising above and choosing that chill mindset. Why not turn a rained-out barbecue into a karaoke house party? Or maybe after a tough loss, you settle scores with an ice-cold peace offering. Make the choice to choose chill, then reach for a Coors Light. It's mountain cold refreshment. And listen, this team, I know they're driving us all nuts. It is August 19th, and Flyers fans are abuzz with both rumor and just made up stuff. We're crazy. It's the middle of August and people are going nuts. That's why sometimes we all need to choose to chill. And there's no better way to celebrate that choice than with an ice cold Coors Light. So whether you're freaking out about goalies, trades, next year's draft already, whatever it is, you need to find the Blue Mountains in your fridge and enjoy a beer as cold as the Rockies, because when everything surrounding your favorite hockey team is on fire, and when isn't it? Sometimes you just got to chill. Make the most of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/PHLY Hockey. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. And now, for the main event, a word from Charlie O'Connor.
Well, you're talking about choose and chill. You're talking about, knocking back some cold ones, bringing that good Coors Light. You know where you could potentially choose chill? At Parks Casino, which is perfect for those after-work get-togethers, date night, girls' night out, catch the Phillies games. They seem like they're turning the corner, maybe a little bit. Would have been nice to get that 4-game sweep, but 3 games out of 4, not bad. We'll see how they do against the Braves. We got the Eagles coming up. Parks Casino is going to be an ideal place to watch those birds, sip on tantalizing drinks, soak up what's left of those warmer weather good vibes at Parks Casino. It offers an epic $5 happy hour, great food and drink every Wednesday through Sunday at the Liberty Bell Gastro Pub. Enjoy $5 drafts of Ford Stout, Victory Seasonal, or Parks Pills. Enjoy $5 glass of Albertoni Cabernet and the drink of the summer, $5 Twisted Tea, Frozen Whiskey Arnold Palmer's. So that's maybe the social, the drinking element. Maybe you're not a drinker. Maybe you want to go for the other parts of Parks Casino. Well, there's quite a lot. We got 3,200 state-of-the-art slots, 115 live table games, a beautiful poker room, collection of incredible award-winning restaurants. They have the best cover bands every weekend at the 360 Lounge, headliners every weekend at the 1,500-seat Excite Center. Tiffany Haddish on September 27th. You can get tickets to that show and all shows at parkscasino.com. So visit parkscasino.com to learn more about the best casino in the area. Must be 21 years or older to gamble. If you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. Parks Casino, this is how you win.
Outstanding work, my friend. I guess one of my biggest issues with Danny Briere's, the clip that I saw, I'm going to listen to the whole thing, but haven't yet. But the clip that has been gone viral throughout Flyers Twitter, he says, we can't pick up the phone and call Kolosov because he doesn't speak English. Why the hell don't we have one guy in an official capacity in this front office who is fluent in Russian? We've been through the Fedotov thing. We've been through the Mishkov thing. Kolosov, Zavragin, Ilya Pautov now. There's a whole lot of Russians and Belarusians in this organization. Why in the hell is that the excuse? Like, you're owned by Comcast. Your budget is theoretically unlimited. We have 3 assistant GMs.
This really bothers you.
3 assistant GMs, Barry Hanrahan, Brent Flair, Alan McCauley. 5 special advisors, Bill Barber, Bobby Clark, Homer, Dean Lombardi, Bob Murray. 2 special advisors, John LeClaire and Patrick Sharp. Not to mention a whole list of scouts, directors, managers, and VPs of all sorts of various departments. Hire one fucking guy that speaks Russian, or take some classes yourself, Danny. Take some classes. I know you got a lot going on. Babbel isn't that expensive. I don't know, man. Figure this out. That can't possibly be an excuse to not have talked to this guy directly. Do you think, this is pure conjecture now, Charlie, which I know is your favorite thing, the he doesn't speak English thing is a cover for we have another top prospect who just won't return our calls?
I mean, yes and no. So, it's a lame excuse. It's a lame excuse, and it's an excuse that...
It's an asinine excuse.
It's just, if anything, and if you go back and listen to the pod, he kind of says it jokingly. Like, he had Riley Cote and Settlemeyer laughing.
I get
like, and in all honesty, what it probably is more meant to convey is that I don't speak Russian. I would love to be able to just call him up and talk it out man to man, but I can't. So we have to go through his agency, we have to go through his representation, and that makes it harder. That said, the Flyers do, Ken Hudakov is one of their scouts. He's in Russia. That's one of the things they had going for them with the Michkov stuff, is that they had boots on the ground there. There are people in the organization that can speak Russian, which is why it doesn't come off as a great excuse. I do think it was probably said a little bit more jokingly. Look, the fact that Kolosov does not speak English well, it does make it tougher. That said, that's not the reason. The reason why they haven't gotten in contact with him is Kolosov clearly didn't want to be getting in contact with.
And that I realize that we have drawn the differences between the Gauthier situation and the Kolosov situation. This all might be one big coincidence. But the fact is, 2 top 5 prospects in your organization over the last 2 years have refused to return your fucking phone calls. This is a problem. I don't know whose problem it is, but but you just can't be bleeding prospects in the middle of a rebuild.
No, it's true.
Like, this is an issue for this organization. Maybe the Gauthier thing is 100% he's an immature dickhead. Maybe the Kolosov situation is 100% the same thing. But like, this can't keep happening. They're all immature. You draft them at 17, 18 years old. No one's a grown up at that age. It's crazy that some of these kids are as professional as they are. My God. If I had been drafted at that age, I don't know what would have happened. But you got to figure this out.
Look, it's a very bad look to have this happen right after the Gauthier thing. And I'm of the opinion that I really don't think these two things are linked. However, I completely understand why fans are pissed off. Like, I think that's where I come from. Like, I'm looking at this and I think these are two very unique situations that just happen to occur to the same organization, and it sucks. And like, yeah, shit happens to the Flyers because the Flyers are cursed. But from a fan perspective, it is a completely reasonable response to get pissed off at the organization because they have now, and like, I don't know if Gauthier very clearly is a top 10 NHL prospect, maybe top 5. Kolosov, like, we had him in the top 10. That's a matter of opinion. Like, he's not an elite goalie prospect. He's not making the top 5s of any NHL goalie prospect list. He's an intriguing goalie prospect who I like because I really like the athleticism, but he's far from a slam dunk. That said, he's clearly a quality prospect.
When I say top 5, I mean like organizational wise.
And what I'm saying is that I don't think, like, I think it's reasonable if you put him in the top 5, but I don't think it is like Gauthier. If he wasn't in the top 5, you're an idiot.
He was number 1 until they drafted Mishkov.
Right. If you put Kolosov 12th, I don't think that is an irrational placement. It just comes down to whether you like him or not. Scouts, people are going to have different opinions. He's a quality prospect. And it is a completely reasonable response for fans, particularly fans who are very into prospects. And I think a lot of our listenership in particular is, because we focus on prospects a lot. I do my big prospect list with Alex Appleyard. The online section of the fan base in general tends to be more focused on prospects because they're just more... I don't know.
You can sell two things, hope and winning, and prospects are hope.
Yeah, but not even that. Like, if you talk to some random Flyers fan on the street, they probably don't really give a crap about Kolosov. But our show and online Twitter in general, it selects for people who are that obsessed that they're going to care about who the 16th best prospect in an organization is. So they're going to be extra angry that now it looks like there's a chance that the Flyers might have found a way to not successfully integrate two relevant prospects in the organization. I don't know if this is a like legitimate organizational problem, but when it happens twice in 2 years, like, you do have to look in the mirror and say, what are we doing? Are we doing anything wrong? Is this just bad luck? Are we doing anything wrong? I think that the Flyers absolutely do need to do some self-evaluation, but I don't necessarily think they need to. I don't think they have to react to this by like, well, we're a dumpster fire, it's all our fault. I, however, completely understand why fans would react in that way.
And
I
like,
get it.
We always, like, because fans, we tie everything together. You know, like, Jonesy and Danny are not at Danny was on the goddamn ice, you know, like, they are not at fault for Patrick Kane scoring that goal. Like, that's a totally different era of Flyers hockey. But like, we as fans, like, we believe our bad luck goes back to their, like, you know, Eric Lindros. Oh yeah, well, guess what? He's the best ever, but he's prone to concussions.
We tie things together.
We tie these things together as fans, and maybe that's unfair, but that's the sports business. Like, that's what you signed up for. And it just seems like a continuation of all the same problems. And these things, Gauthier and Kolosov, did happen under your watch. Like, these are problems of your time. We don't have a whole lot to judge these guys on. It's not as if they've been making move after move after move. Like, they subtracted some guys last year. Mishkov is over here, but that's basically it. Like, yeah, the Provorov trade was great. What else are we judging him on? Well, Gauthier stopped taking your phone calls, and it seems as if Kolosov is doing the same thing. Like, these are the benchmarks of the rebuild so far. Yeah. Like, that's what we're judging. Is it that fair? Maybe not, but fucking life ain't fair.
No, life isn't fair. And that's the thing. You're running a professional organization, and fair or unfair, you're judged on this. And, I do think it's reasonable to say, because you just kind of brush aside but there was Michkov. Like, it's fair to, if you're gonna ding them for screwing up Gauthier and Kolosov, you have to also note that they very much seem like they excelled in the Michkov situation.
Yes.
Now, by the same token, if you're going to say, great job, Danny, on the Michkov situation, you can't then brush aside the Kolosov thing and be like, well, you got one right, but like that guy, he doesn't matter because he's just an immature kid. Like, no, you probably could have done the Kolosov situation better where this isn't a problem, because very clearly something happened in Allentown. Now, I'm not saying that there's some big cover up or anything. What I'm saying is that a kid came over excited about joining the Flyers organization and being part of the North American side of the organization starting this season. He left having a completely different opinion. Now, I don't think the Flyers did anything in those 3 weeks that was nasty, that was, a dereliction of duty. I don't think that they did that. I think that the hotel he was up was perfectly fine. Hotel he was up in was perfectly fine. That they didn't just lock him in a room and say, figure it out, kid. Like, I think they tried. But in retrospect, I'm sure you hook Danny and them up to a lie detector, they would have, if they could redo it, they would give him more support so they wouldn't have to be going through this. And that is something that, if you would have done something differently in retrospect, then you do deserve some blame if it goes bad, to be sure.
This just came to me because if I have a chance to blame something on Anne LaPerriere, I'm going to take it. It should maybe more be put on the actual people on the ground in Allentown. I don't know if it's Lappy, if he's preparing his team to get to the playoffs. He's like, oh, let me babysit this guy over here. I don't know if that's his job, but
it's not.
No, exactly. But somebody with the Phantoms on the staff, maybe needed to be paying a little more attention to the situation.
I don't get the sense that he was ignored. I think they were checking in on him regularly, but obviously, it's one of those things where you could always do more. There's always, when you look back and you look back on anything that didn't go the way you wanted it, whether it's a job you got fired from or a company that you managed that didn't work or a relationship that went bad. There's always things that if you want to play the what could I have done differently, there's always things you could have done differently. And the fact that we're at this point tells you that Kolosov, at the very least, didn't feel good about his time. Now, maybe that would have happened anywhere. Maybe this is a kid who, and again, I don't want to spend this show, and I think we've done a good job of not ripping him. I don't want to be ripping Alexei Kolosov. If the kid just came over here, felt homesick, and decides, yeah, I'm not ready yet, I'm empathetic towards him. But by the same token, if the Flyers had done more, if they had spent more resources, if they would have, 2 weeks before bringing him over, if they would have made a bullshit minor league trade to bring over a Russian player to have in anticipation of the fact that Kolosov was probably going to be there, and they didn't do it, maybe that would have changed things. Maybe he wouldn't have went back to Europe feeling as negatively about the experience as he ultimately clearly did. Yeah, those are things you could have changed. I don't think the Flyers did anything terrible to him, but of course they could have done more. Of course they could have.
No, yeah, I think that's obvious. And like you said, you could always do more.
You could always do more.
It just seems as if maybe they just got this one. I don't want to totally brush aside, they could have done everything possible. Say they did 110% of what was possible to do.
They put him in a mansion, had a Russian butler.
Yeah, brought his family out, whatever. He maybe just didn't like it. Maybe he was just this isn't for me. Yeah. That was a definite possibility. But yeah, they probably could have done more as well. And that's where I'm all right, this didn't work for you. Let's see if we can come up with something that does. Their stance right now, and it's their stance right now as far as we know, it could soften between, when the hell does camp start? Middle of September, first couple weeks of September? Yeah. 10th, 11th, something like that?
Yeah, the 12th is the first day of rookie camp, which I imagine he would be expected to attend.
That's where I assume he is expected to show up.
Yeah.
Between now and then, we're talking a little less than a month, their stance could very much change.
It could.
why not just give the kid what he wants? Like, how is forcing him to do something he doesn't want to do benefit anybody?
Well, I guess the argument they would make is that, number one, we think his development will be better here. Number two, we can't be in the business of just caving at every turn. That's at some point, you can't just be like, oh, yeah, you get to do whatever you want. At some point, you have to be like, look, kid, you signed the contract, and we're willing to do everything we can to make you comfortable. I reported a few months ago that the Flyers had offered for this upcoming season, like, we'll work to bring your girlfriend over. And like, they very clearly are willing to do that because, as we've seen on Instagram, they brought Michkov's mom and his brother over. Like, they're willing to do these things. And I think there probably is a feeling on the Flyers' part as like, we have communicated to you that we're now willing to bend over backwards. Any feelings of neglect that you may have felt during those 3 or so weeks in Allentown, we're going to do everything we can to make you feel like you are not only not being neglected, but being, given everything possible. And if that's not enough, we don't really know what else we can tell you. Like, I think that's kind of where they're at. And again, we'll see how this plays out, but they very clearly, strongly believe that they've done everything they can do to try to make this a seamless process. They gave him the 1-year loan. They brought him over early. They think that, all right, dude, it's time to, shit or get off the pot.
There have been, and like the commenter earlier who was incorrect saying we didn't, like, he mentioned some other Russian goal, like, some of these guys don't come over till their mid-20s. Like, it is very much a thing to, like, if you want to spend your whole ELC over, like, we have your rights, come over whenever. Mm-hmm. Do you think that's, like, on the table? Like, all right, man, you need to grow up a little. We have other goalie plans. Maybe in a few years, everyone's feelings on this situation will have changed. Like, do you think that's a possibility? Well, not even just a 1-year loan, but maybe this is a multi-year process with him?
I think that's the concern on their part, is that if we loan him back over one more year, we're just doing the same thing next summer where he's like, yeah, I'm still not ready, sorry. And then suddenly you loaned him the entirety of the entry-level contract and gave him a signing bonus for no friggin' reason. Like, I'm not saying that money matters that much because, like, it is Comcast. They have a ton of money. But there is kind of the principle of the matter of
we are paying.
Like, we are paying you, dude. Yeah. Like, sorry, you can't just take our money and then be like, nah, I never want to play for you. Sorry.
Yeah, and it's a little, I always think of like, yeah, he could get hurt anywhere at any time. But at least, like, he's serving his purpose with us if he's on the Flyers roster, if he's on the Phantoms roster. Like, there's a trajectory here where it makes sense. You're serving a purpose for our organization. It's like, you get hurt over there. Like, all right, so we paid you for what? Exactly. And I think that's always a part of it, too.
And again, like, I'm not unsympathetic to Kolosov, especially if this is coming from a place of real, like, just discomfort with the idea of making the jump to North America. I'm just saying, from the Flyers' perspective, their view, and I think it's a reasonable view, is you signed the contract. You were not forced to sign a contract. You signed the contract because you wanted to go down the road of becoming an NHL player, and you wanted to join our organization. And we loaned you for 1 year because we both agree that you weren't ready, and that, our system was a little bit blocked at the moment because the Carter Hart situation was in flux, and we didn't quite know what we had yet and whatever. Now we want you to adhere to the contract you signed. And I can be empathetic towards Kolosov's emotions and also see where the Flyers are coming from too. And be like, dude, like, you signed a contract.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I very much get both sides of this. I just always tend to lean player. Like, fair. Two, I don't see this getting resolved with any sort of hardline stance. If you don't want to be here, you're not going to be here. That thing worked with Cutter Gauthier. They sold it right. All the, I don't want to say propaganda because that has a negative connotation, but basically, like, it all worked. It happening twice now, it's like, this is on you. If it's just one guy, like, I have a hard time siding with the organization when this is now, for whatever different reasons, happened twice. I'm like, all right, there's something wrong. You're doing something incorrectly. I don't know what that something is, but you're not doing it right to the point that we are in trouble of potentially losing yet another highly thought of, however highly you think is up for debate, but another, like you said, relevant prospect.
Yeah, a relevant prospect.
And that is very concerning to me when we're supposed to be rebuilding. Before we go any further, however, I do got to pay a couple bills here. First, though, I got to tell you about our friends at Ace Hardware Home Services. Man, I've been singing the praises of Ace Hardware and their home services for a few weeks now, but I want to keep doing it because I think this is a very much worthwhile advertisement here. Listen, you got a leaky pipe. At Ace Hardware Home Services, we're around the block with everything you need to fix it, including the person to do the fixing. You got an air conditioning issue like I did a few weeks ago. They've got a person for that. If you've got a faucet you said you'd fix last fall, they have a person for that too, because Ace Hardware is not just the helpful hardware folks. They're also the helpful home services and repair folks. From plumbing to heating and cooling, we've got the trusted pros to keep your home humming all year long. Ace Hardware Home Services, we're bringing helpful home, the helpful you love, from the store now to your front door. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project. I've been going to Ace for years, and now that they have the home services, big fan of that as well. You get my recommendation, Ace. I hope people check out Ace Hardware Home Services. All right, and while we're here, TrueMark Pickleball Tournament, man, this is going to be a ton of fun. I'm really looking forward to this event. TrueMark Financial Care Foundation is hosting a charity pickleball event to raise money for financial education in our local communities. For those of you who were at the PHLY golf outing, Charlie was there, you might remember our friends from TrueMark, and this is to benefit their foundation charity. Listen, I tell you all the time, one of the great things about a credit union, and especially TrueMark Financial, is that they are part of the community and they are here to serve the people in their community. And here's one of the ways they're doing it right here with their Care Foundation. It's a pretty good one, man. The event is September 7th at the Upper Dublin Sports Center in Ambler, PA. It's from 1:30 to 5 p.m. It's a round-robin tournament. They'll have certified pickleball pro on site to overview the game for anyone who's never played before. You don't need prior experience to sign up. It's a fun day for everybody. Paddles and balls will be available to use for free. The cost is $50 to benefit the charity, and all players get a swag bag from both TrueMark and us right here at PHLY, so that's pretty cool. If you want to get your company involved in a sponsorship and have your local and have your logo on display at the event, they're selling a variety of sponsorships from $200 all the way to $1,000. And even if you don't want to play pickleball, you can still support the event. There will be food and beer trucks on site. Percentage of the proceeds will go to charity. There's going to be music, cornhole, other long games, 50-50 raffles, prizes, giveaways. You know how we do events here at PHLY. Now TrueMark is going to be involved as well, and it's all going to benefit their charity, which helps educate people on finances. And listen, I'm a person who definitely needs education, and I think a lot of people could use some financial education out there. Just guessing, there's a lot of people like me. We're not all geniuses like Charlie. We don't all get that Ivy League education. And even if you did, you might not know all that much about finances. So sign up to come play. Go to TrueMark.com/PHLY Pickleball. And the best part, as a PHLY fan, you get a 10% discount on registration. All you got to do, TrueMark.com/PHLY Pickleball. All right. So that's the Kolosov part of this conversation. I feel like we've fleshed that part out pretty well.
Yeah.
Now there is the thing everyone is going nuts about online. Maybe like the real thing I don't think is as big as the fake thing. And by fake thing, I just mean like Elliot Friedman hasn't tweeted that the Flyers are in on Askarov or anything. Like, oh, they're negotiating. We'll see. Like, we haven't heard any of that.
Yeah.
But
because that was the whole point of my tweets. My tweet thread was that I'm not saying that I know for sure that they're not in on Askarov. I just don't think they are going to be in on Askarov based on the circumstantial evidence of what I know about how they feel about Sam Arison and about how they clearly feel about Ivan Fedotov, given the commitment they made to him after what, like 2 NHL appearances?
Yes, and I like the Fedotov part of this is, to me, like a non-issue.
Well, let's before we get into this, let's actually talk about Yaroslav Askarov.
All right.
For those who are not super online and do not know who we're talking about, we should probably give the background.
Good thinking. All right. So it appeared sometime between the trade deadline and the draft and everything that went down that the Nashville Predators might be trading UC Saros. And because they have Yaroslav Askarov, a very highly touted prospect.
He was taken 11th overall in the 2020 draft. Goalies are not taken in the first round very often, so this
Like
was
ever? Yeah.
I mean, I believe that draft there were a few.
Yeah.
But generally speaking today, if you're a goalie that was taken in the first round, you are viewed as a potential franchise goalie.
Vezina contender.
Yes. He is universally viewed as one of the best goalie prospects in hockey.
They had him. It was like, oh, Nashville's probably going to trade Saros. He's getting up there. There's a few teams, including the Devils. It was like, oh, 10 for Saros. Looks like it's going to happen. None of this goes down.
Saros has one more. He basically this upcoming season will have been his final year on his contract. So the idea was, okay, well, they're going to trade Saros and they're going to turn the net over to Askarov, the guy who they spent the 11th overall pick on just a few years ago. That was the general assumption.
And then that never happened. In fact, they then gave UC Saros an 8-year contract extension. Right. They committed to this guy long term. So it's like, well, what the hell happens to their highly touted prospect
They
now?
basically bobbed him the way that the Flyers did by signing Ilya Bryzgalov.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
So it's reported, and this has been rumored, but Kevin Weeks reports today that he has officially requested a trade from the Askarov has officially requested a trade. He doesn't want to spend a whole year in another year in the AHL.
He's spent 2 already.
Yeah,
he's been in their AHL system for 2 seasons. This is in a situation where he didn't come over from Russia. He's been over for a few years. Yeah.
He's played for the Milwaukee Admirals. He's there, and now he wants guaranteed NHL playing time.
Right.
The Flyers may be losing a goalie prospect. They also don't have, at the NHL level or AHL level, a guy that you'd be like, that's a number one.
They do not have the slam dunk long-term answer to their goaltending. I'm not even going to call it problem, but just the goaltending question.
Who the hell is the goalie long-term? We will see. We just
not know
talked. Yes. This year we're going to find out about Arison and Fedotov, and then next year maybe Kolosov joins the mix in a 3-way goalie competition to really see who has the net, at least until, Bjarnason, Zvragin, who are years away at this point. Yeah. It is a question. What happens in net? There are varying degrees of what you think of, like, oh, yeah, Arison, he's fine, or Arison stinks, or he's going to be great. There's a lot of different thoughts on Sam Arison. My first question, Charlie, do you believe Yaroslav Askarov has a higher upside than Sam Arison?
Probably.
Then why not trade for him?
Because they really like Sam Arison. And just because, I do think that, and this is understandable. I get it. I totally get the online tendency towards upside. It's like, well, does he have the bigger upside? Well, yeah, he's better. Upside does not mean certainty. There is no guarantee. Despite the fact that Yaroslav Askarov is a highly touted goalie prospect, some people believe he is the best goalie prospect in hockey, although that is more of a matter of opinion and whatnot. It's not a certainty that he's going to be good. It's not. It's just not. We don't know for sure. Goalie prospects bust all the time. Goalies bust all the time. This happens. The Flyers know Sam Arison. They like Sam Arison. They drafted him. They developed him. They really like his mental makeup. They believe he is a strong mental goalie. They like his talent. And they do not, unlike I think some fans, particularly fans who didn't watch the games, the ones who just kind of look at the stats and say oh, he had a 890 save percentage. This guy stinks. Those who lived the final 2 months of that season know that it was not Sam Arison's fault that his stats tanked. It was the circumstances of they lost Carter Hart because Carter Hart got indicted essentially, and Cal Peterson made it abundantly clear that he's not an NHL goalie. So it then became, okay, we're in a playoff race. So if we want any chance to make the playoffs, we got to use the one actual NHL caliber goalie we have on the roster. So we're going to run Sam Arison to the ground and cross our fingers that he holds up. He didn't. His numbers tanked. The Flyers are not holding it against Sam Arison that his full season numbers as a rookie don't look great, because they look at it as that's not the real Sam Arison. We saw the real Sam Arison for 2/3 of the season, and then we saw the exhausted, mentally drained Sam Arison, who we ran into the ground due to circumstances out of his control. They like Sam Arison, and they are not, I do not think they are willing to basically, which I think is what they would have to do if they were trading for Askarov, whether it would be in this trade or whether it would be a separate trade. I do not think they are willing to jettison Sam Arison and replace him with Askarov. I just don't think they're willing to do it. Even if you could say Askarov's upside is higher. Yeah, probably. He was a first-round pick. You know, he's been highly touted for his whole career. But, like, Arison could be real good, too. I don't know enough about the goalie position to say with certainty that, like, Sam Arison isn't going to be a better goalie than Askarov. He very well could be. And, like, the flip side of this, and again, I'm not criticizing fans because I understand why people are excited about this guy. He's a highly touted goalie prospect who is suddenly available. If the Flyers traded Arison for Askarov and Askarov busted and Arison became a legitimately good NHL goalie, this would be something that we would be screaming about for 20 years. We're still complaining about Bob.
Yeah, but like, if that's how you make every decision, especially in a rebuild, well, like, what if it goes wrong? You're never going to be anything but mediocre.
But at some point, you got to trust your guys, and they trust Arison. They like Arison.
In a normal circumstance, like if I like Sam Arison and I do like his mental makeup and I really appreciate what he did for them last year, all that stuff. Under normal circumstances, if Askarov wasn't available, I would love to find out what Sam Arison could be given a normal workload, you know, not starting 28 out of 34 or whatever the hell it was. Like, I would love to see what he could be. That said, I don't think he's good enough to be like, well, we can't go get this guy who might be great. Like, this rebuild only works if you take some swings on high-end talent. By all accounts, this is a high-end talent. If you have to trade a goalie who might have done something for you, might not, like, I think it's worth the swing. I just see a guy, this is a first round, and it's not as if this is some organization, Nashville, that gets this shit wrong a lot. They're pretty good with this. They're usually right about goalies. It happens with them a lot.
Okay, but by the flip side of that, if you're saying that Nashville is usually right about goalies, they very clearly made the decision that they would rather have 8 years of a declining UC Saros than entrust the net to Yaroslav Askarov.
They also are in a much different position. They are a small market team very much afraid to have bad seasons.
Fair.
They would not be profitable if they miss the playoffs, if they have a couple of years where they're just kind of irrelevant. And this plan worked with them last time. They had Pecorine, they had UC Saros, and they had both for a while. And it worked for them. And then eventually they handed it off to Saros and all went well. That probably is what the plan is again, until now he is Yaroslav Askarov has now asked for, these are just so many names.
A lot of names.
So many Russians today. But like, this is now the plan. Now he has thrown a wrench in that, being like, no, I'm not staying in the AHL. I'm not going to be backing up this guy with an 8-year contract. That's foolish. That doesn't help my career at all. I want out of here.
Right.
Makes sense for him.
Completely understandable.
Very understandable for him. He wants to make NHL starter money at some point. You know, I just see an opportunity to upgrade a question mark position. I liked what I saw out of Sam Arison. I didn't like it enough to be like, oh yeah, fuck it. He's set and forget. Like, it's still, we're figuring out what he is this year. It's not as if like he's the starter because we don't have a starter. It's not as if this is Carter. Well, yeah, Carter Hart's the number one, and then whatever happens behind him is the backup situation. Like, no, this is a competition for the next couple of years in this net. Go get the best guy. I guess he's the best guy.
I guess my thing, and like, look, if the Flyers traded Arison for Askarov, I would understand it, because again, as you said, it would be a big swing. And we've said, take big swings. What rubs me the wrong way about the discourse around Askarov is, and this is a trap that a lot of us fall into. It's not something that I think is unique to Twitter. It's unique to just fans in general. You dream on prospects, and like Askarov is the blue chip goalie prospect. So therefore, if you're into prospects, it is very, very difficult for you to imagine a world where Askarov isn't a stud. Like, there are, like, goalie prospects bust all the time.
It happens regularly.
And you can't, like, I had somebody in my mentions that Dylan Robillard today who was like, it's proven that Askarov is a number one start. I'm like, is it? He has a career, like, he has a .911 save percentage in the AHL, which is good. It's good for his age. It's not, it doesn't scream to me like, oh my God, we definitely have the next, like, Shesterkin on our hands. Like, I think that this happens where people get too excited about prospects, where it just becomes like, oh, he's a top prospect, he's going to be a stud. That's not a guarantee. It's not even close to a guarantee.
This isn't even about him being a stud to me, and I think he has a higher potential to be one than Sam Arison. I think this is very much a probabilities conversation. Chances are Askarov is better than Sam Arison. Like, that's just reality. Chances are he's better.
I am not 100% ready to say that, like, with the degree of certainty, because it's not like you're just going to be able to do this trade by swapping Arison for Askarov.
Oh, no.
You're going to have to like either trade Arison in a separate trade or include him in this deal and then give up more assets in addition. And their view probably is like, yeah, in a vacuum, if you're asking me to choose between Sam Arison and Askarov, would I pick Askarov? Yeah, probably. But if it is Arison versus giving up a first-round pick and another prospect and Sam Arison, then it's a much different calculation.
And that's what it comes down to for me. Like, if the price is astronomical, maybe I back off. But we've seen some goalies moved around, including like a potential star in Jacob Markstrom to a team that is in win now mode, and it didn't cost a whole lot. Now, he's like 34. You're trading for what, a 22-year-old goalie, like who you're hoping like Nashville has to build into the price. Like, we're trading you what could be your starter for 10 years. So, like, you're going to pay us for that.
Yeah.
Not your starter for 2 years like Jacob Markstrom's
and we've gotten every indication that Nashville is not selling.
Yeah. They're not selling low
They
on this
may
guy.
have to, but, like, they don't. Right now, they are saying, like, hey, if you want this guy, you're going to have to pay up.
Much like the Kolosov conversation. There's a little bit of, you can want to trade all you want, bro.
Yeah.
But you're fucking here.
Yeah.
And before we go any further, I want to thank all of our PHLY diehards. Couldn't do what we do here without you at PHLY or throughout All City. You make it possible. So thanks a lot to our diehards.
I guess where I come from, and this is after decades of watching the best prospects not become what we expected them to. Like, we watched it with the Flyers. They had the best prospect pool for like 2-3 years, and then the one guy they got out of it who is like a borderline star is Travis Konechny. Everybody else either busted or is like just decent. In Arison, I have a guy who I know has the mental toughness to be an NHL goalie. I believe has the skill to be an NHL caliber goalie. And I am intrigued to see what his ceiling is when he is not being dramatically misused to the degree that everyone involved in the situation agrees he was dramatically misused. With Askarov, he might be great. And, like, I'm not going to go to the mystery box thing because, like, he's established enough that he isn't just a mystery box. He's a top-tier goalie prospect who's already shown that he is an above-average AHL goalie at a young age. That is a really good asset. That is a guy with serious potential. But I don't want to fall in the trap of reading his scouting reports and being certain that he is going to be a stud. And I think that people do fall into that trap, whereas there is more certainty surrounding Arison. Now, is there maybe more certainty that Arison isn't going to be a star goalie? Sure, because he's further along in the process. And most likely, if he was going to be a star, he would have shown us that he has star-level potential. But there's a lot of scenarios where Askarov just, like, doesn't have what it takes mentally, or his game doesn't translate, or he gets hurt. Like, I guess it's not a slam dunk to me because I don't have the same certainty that I think a lot of people have about Askarov's future.
Yeah, we're talking about these AHL numbers and what they've done throughout their careers. Like, he's got that career .911 save percentage Askarov does in the AHL. In one full season in the AHL, Arison put up a .900 save percentage. Mm-hmm. His NHL save percentage in 12 games a couple of years ago, .899. His NHL save percentage this last season, and I know about the workload. I bring it up all the time. It wasn't fair. It was fucked up, honestly. Bad for him. .890. He hasn't been consistently good anywhere.
He was really good in Sweden.
Yes, since coming over, since he's been a part of the Flyers organization with the Phantoms and Flyers, he hasn't set the world on fire. I think there's something there, and if this wasn't a possibility, would love to see it. But if given the choice of first-round prospect who's already had a better AHL career than he did, who's already tasted a little bit of NHL, over guy who might be okay, that's what I think Arison ultimately is going to be. Maybe there's more there, but ultimately I think he's going to be okay, and that's it. I need to take that chance because, and again, it comes down to price. I'm not giving up everything, but I want high-end talent. We don't have our 1D yet. We don't have our 1C yet, and that's why it comes down to, I'm not going to surrender all these assets and then still not have a 1D or a 1C.
Yeah, and I think
but
that's definitely
if you can get him for something reasonable, then I think you have to do it, because how many times this summer have we said this position has such an outsized impact on, it's the position that if you get right, you're automatically a contender. You can have an okay team. If you have the goalie, that covers up a lot of things. Now, ultimately, you'd like to have everything, but they don't yet.
Yeah.
And this might be kind of almost a backdoor to contendership while they're figuring out 1C and 1D. That's what I see ultimately. And it might not work. It might be a fucking failure. But that's what a rebuild is taking calculated risks. They haven't taken any yet, as far as I'm concerned.
Fair.
Other than the Konechny contract, which is a calculated risk
in
that many don't agree with.
Yeah, it's the other direction. He's going to age well and whatnot. I see where you're coming from. And let me put it this way. If they were to trade for Askarov, I wouldn't be critical of it. I would understand the logic of it. I just don't think it is... I don't think it's a slam dunk that they should have it. They should absolutely be an Askarov, because it's not I guess if your philosophy is the Flyers are in a rebuild and therefore every single young player, regardless of position, regardless of fit, regardless of anything, just get them or just be in on them because that's the position you're in and just go for upside, period. Fair. That's a consistent philosophical way to build belief on building a team. I think they have bigger organizational needs than burning a first round pick on getting Askarov. I would rather them burn a first round pick on getting a center or getting a defensive. Now, if the choice is burn a first round pick on Askarov or don't use it at all, then sure, use it on Askarov. But if this isn't the big trade I would personally make.
It's if it could be Arison and you get your pick of the Colorado, Edmonton picks, whichever one is better for you, that's fine with me. If it's considerably more than that, and it's going to cost you a couple of guys in the system too, some highly touted prospects or whatever, then it's no longer worth it. But I think there's a way, hopefully, to do it without burning your entire asset collection to the ground. If you have to do it, then maybe this isn't the best way to spend them. But they're going to have to take some risks at some point, and they haven't yet. When do we get this high-end talent? When is it coming? Here's a high-end possibility, a guy who wants out at a position of need. Is it the biggest need? No. But it is a need, and it's a real important one. I don't see as much downside as you do.
I guess the point I'm making is that, I guess theoretically everything is a need. Because they don't have a good enough team.
Middle six winger, I think, if a middle six winger became available in this situation, I'd be nah, we're good. We don't need to be in on that guy. 1C, 1D, 1G are very much still positions of need. Now, they need a center we need air. That's true. But as we've seen, goalies are real fucking important. We've never had one, and it's the biggest thing in the world. We've never had a goalie. We talk about it for 30 years. Here's a chance to get one. That's all. All right.
The one point I do want to make is I saw some people talking about this in the chat. The idea of trading. Well, what about Fedotov? What if you traded Fedotov? Here's the thing.
I don't like that.
Here's the thing with trading Fedotov. I get the argument of, you just be replacing a Russian with a Russian, so you still got the help from Michkov. I get that. The thing with that is, and this is stuff that we're never going to know, but they worked so hard to get him over here. They probably had to go through so many conversations with people in Russia that they don't want to piss off, promising him things and, you're going to get a shot. we're working in your best interest because you deserve an NHL shot or everything you go through. If after that you then trade him before he ever plays really gets a fair chance in your organization, I don't think that does much to help your standing in Russia in terms of like working to deal with these teams and these oligarchs and all of that. Like, I don't think, plus like, you overpaid for Fedotov. I don't know how much value he even has.
That's my thing. It's like it has to be Arison because like we don't know what's up with Kolosov, and Fedotov, 2 years, 3.275. No NHL experience because last year like doesn't count. Like, I don't think we've put enough emphasis, except for you, on the hand-me-down pads. Like, he's breaking in pads at the NHL level. He just got off. He's jet lagged getting into, like, the shit. He can't possibly have any value. That is a straight-up dump if you're trying to move Fedotov here. I don't know who the hell is taking him at that price. You're going to have to throw in more to get Nashville to take him at that price, and you're trying to get Askarov. Like, it just doesn't work for me in my mind.
Or if you went to him and you're like, sorry, dude, like, we're going to send you to the AHL because nobody's going to claim you because your contract's too big because we need to get this hot shot Nashville Russian guy. Like, I guess you could, and if you really wanted to be like that heartless of an organization, you could. But it's going to have a backlash.
He's getting on a plane.
Yeah, like
he's going back.
It's going to there's going to be a backlash, and not just in terms of Fedotov, because understandably he'd be ticked off about it. I get that, but just like this is a guy who got sent to the army. Like you're telling me the Flyers didn't have to like have conversations with like higher ups in the Russian government about this? I'm sure they did, whether it was via back channels or whether it was just straight up. Like, there were a lot of things they had to go through to get him over here. And if you then basically turn around and renege on your promises to him because a 22-year-old shiny new toy popped up in front of you and you're like, well, we got to have him. Sorry, Ivan. Like, I just don't think that's something you can do without there being serious negative consequences to your future dealings with anyone in a position of power in Russia.
I think Arison has more upside than Fedotov. Like, I'd rather, like, if all things were equal, keep Arison. But, like, I just think it makes more sense to trade. Like, Fedotov is almost 28 years old. He's got no NHL experience, making way too much money. You can't trade him. He's not worth anything.
Yeah.
Like,
no, it would probably be, it would less be you trade him.
Yeah.
I mean, unless maybe there's a team out there that really likes him and you retain, which then gets into other issues with the cap. But it's more that you made promises to this guy. I think you could probably find a way if like Fedotov just stinks. I think you probably find a way out of it after this year where you say to him, look, dude, like
this was your shot.
You have an 878 save percentage. You're clearly not an NHL goalie. Like, why don't we work something out where, you can go back home and be a star goalie in the KHL for the rest of your career. But after you went through everything you went through to get him here, you can't pull the plug on it yet. You can't. Number one, they don't want to do it because they just I think they are just obsessed with the idea of finally.
What if it works?
Finally finding out what this guy is. Number two, they feel like he was done wrong by a lot of people and they don't want to screw him over.
For years.
They feel like he deserves his NHL shot. And number three, they promise him the NHL shot. So I don't think it is feasible for them to pull the plug on the Fedotov experiment before it even really gets started, just because Askarov is available. Hey, I guess you can't rule anything out. I just don't think that would be the right thing to do for a lot of reasons, both morally and strategically.
Yeah.
And I'm of the opinion in retrospect that I don't know if I would have brought Fedotov over if I had to sign him to that contract. But the Flyers did it.
Yeah.
So now you've made your bed. Now you got to lie.
That is very much it. While I think there's this isn't a reason to do this, I just think it doesn't work for a number of reasons. Fedotov's here no matter what. It's the Arison, Kolosov, and Askarov. There's just so many goddamn names today.
A lot of names.
That's the whole situation I'm dealing with now. I think Fedotov is a separate thing from that. And it's he's here and he's the backup. This other situation, I think we can figure out. And it might be an ability to upgrade this position organizationally. That's all.
I totally get the attraction of Askarov. I get it. And again, if the Flyers did it, I wouldn't be writing articles saying it's a dumb decision. That said, I guess really what it all boils down to at its core is that I do believe in Sam Arison.
Okay.
I do. And so because I believe in Sam Arison, I do not feel the same urgency to just immediately grab the next big thing, because I think Sam Arison is going to be a good NHL goalie. Now, it's like, okay, could you potentially get a great NHL goalie in Askarov? Sure, but like, is that the right way to use extra assets to turn a guy who I think is going to be a good NHL goalie into a great NHL goalie? I don't know. I'd rather use those extra assets to address needs I think are larger. Now, if you think, and I'm not saying you, I'm more saying like the royal you, I guess.
Yes.
If you just think Arison stinks, then for you, it's a no-brainer. Then yeah, get Askarov, because we're going to find out in a year that Arison's bad, and then we're going to need to get another goalie anyway, so you might as well get the jump on it. I'm just not there. I like Arison.
We're so deep into overtime now, we're just going to keep this conversation going, because screw it. And I know you said the royal you, not... Like, I am not of the belief. I think the chances are low that Arison stinks. I just think he might be a good tandem goalie. Mm-hmm. Like, maybe a starter, but not... He ain't winning you games. He's just not losing them for you.
And that's probably the most likely scenario.
That's the most likely scenario with every goalie, you know? But, like, I just don't see high-end upside with him. I think he's probably all right. Mm-hmm. I think he's probably good. But I don't see him being the reason we win a cup. Okay. And now, like, there's no guarantee Askarov is. He might be worse. Like, who the hell knows? Yeah. But, like, if I see an opportunity in the situation the Flyers in, I want to take it, and that's it. Now, I want to make this joke because I wrote it, and, again, we're so deep in overtime, it doesn't matter. Is falling in love, because the thing we all like about him is
falling in love. That was a good way to start it.
The thing we all like about him is his mental makeup. Arison.
Yes.
Is falling in love with his mental makeup the downfall of, like, this cultural rebuild? Like, yeah, Askarov might be the better player, but we're not looking for the best players. We're looking for the right players. You know, like I said last week, like, that fucking Herb Brooks quote has given coaches for generations, like, the standing to make objectively bad lineup decisions.
Yeah. I see where you're coming from.
Like, well, you know... Yeah, we could have got a first-round pick for Scott Lawton, but we just need his leadership.
But I don't think it's
is that part of kind of the same thing?
No, I don't think it's the same thing, because I don't think they're keeping. I don't think they like Arison because of, like, well, he's just such a great guy. I think the way they look at it is mental toughness is an essential part.
It's a very big skill
of succeeding as an NHL goalie, and we know this guy has it.
This is an actual skill.
We don't know that Askarov has it. Now, he very well could. I'm not trying to slander the guy, but, like, they know
he's here.
That Arison has it. He's here,
and
they've watched him, they've talked to him, they've interacted with him. They know he has that skill. Now it just comes down to, does he have the, like, physical talent to take advantage of the mental toughness? But they've already checked that box with him, whereas everybody else, they don't really know.
We have a lot of live viewers, it looks like.
Oh, cool.
And thank you for joining. Some of you live viewers have submitted super chats for us. We're going to actually, just one?
Just one super chat.
I thought I saw a couple, but okay. I mean, it's right in front of me. So let's get to the one super chat from Gary B. He says, I kind of agree with Bill. Maybe he just isn't mentally mature enough to completely uproot his life.
Yeah.
And that's speaking of Kolosov,
I would assume.
Yeah, like maybe another year, just better for him. Like, if that's the case, I'd rather that, but there's just no way to know.
Yeah.
For, like, okay, but that was what you said last year.
This is where...
So what happens when you say it a third time?
Yeah. This is where I think having a conversation, that, like, the conversation that will hopefully happen between Danny and Kolosov's new representation, Dan Milstein, and hopefully Kolosov involved. Like, hopefully you can have a conversation, and if the Flyers were to ultimately acquiesce and give him the second year, I would assume they do it because Kolosov swears up and down that, like, I will spend all this year, working on getting myself in the right mental place to be able to make the jump the following season. Maybe he makes that case, as fluently, even though he's not English, he doesn't speak English, but, like, as convincingly as possible. And Danny and the Flyers are like, okay, we're satisfied, we'll let you do it. I don't think they've had that meeting yet. I guess we'll see how it goes.
I think I saw it's going to happen this week.
Yeah, that's what Kevin reported.
Maybe I just made up Wednesday.
I reached out to Milstein, and he said, not going to comment at this time. So,
all right. Well, that's that. Bryce Brzezinski, this doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, Bryce Brzezinski is a 7th-round pick from a few years back. The Flyer, he's a college guy, played for the University of Minnesota.
5 years in college. I mean,
the pandemic played a role in that, too.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys got extra years of eligibility. The
yeah.
Flyers chose not to sign him to an entry-level contract.
We knew that was going to happen months ago.
I would be highly skeptical if he ever plays an NHL game for any team.
Yeah, he
much
put
less
up
the Flyers.
His last couple of years, he put up decent offensive numbers, but he's a 22, 23-year-old.
You expect,
he's a man.
Yeah, you expect guys that age to be at least scoring decently in college if they are anything remotely close to a good college prospect. Bryce Brzezinski was never a guy who threatened to make our top 20 list.
There's only so many contracts.
I don't think this is anything shocking, nor a loss of an intriguing talent.
Okay.
I don't think he's an NHL caliber player.
One more super chat, then we'll get out of here. It's from Vineet Singh. Any chance that Kolosov soured on the Flyers after the Fedotov contract and not seeing a clear path to the NHL this year and next? He signed his ELC. Yeah, maybe he thought he could be the backup right away or something, but Sam Arison was here, Carter Hart was here. He has a clearer path to the NHL now than he did 2 years ago.
That's fair.
It's going to be, if he comes over and is good in the AHL this year, it's almost unless Sam Arison is dominant or something, or Fedotov just kills way more than we're expecting.
Yeah.
It's basically an open competition in 2025-26 for the goalie position. That would not happen if Carter Hart was just here. In all likelihood, maybe they trade him because that was thought of as a possibility, but he was the starter unless something dramatic happened. He has more of a path to the NHL now than he did when he signed his ELC.
Yeah, if anything, if it had an impact in any way, maybe it had an impact in that
Fedotov got NHL time right away and he didn't?
No, I don't think so. What I was more going to say is that he just really doesn't like Allentown. And now it's now I know I have to spend another year in Allentown.
Yeah, maybe.
Because I do not believe that Kolosov was ever promised NHL time. I just don't.
All right. Well, that, I think we, 17, an hour 17, I think we've covered everything we need to for today.
Yep.
So thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. If you haven't already, you got to hit that subscribe button. Follow us right here on YouTube. Set that reminder bell. Never miss a live show. And if you're joining us for the first time, hit that like button, all that stuff. We very much appreciate it. Follow us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers. Follow the podcast wherever you get those. Just search PHLY Flyers. Tomorrow is Tuesday Reviews Day. And we're talking about Minor Leaguer, the new movie with Timu Solani and Brett Hull. It's available on Amazon.
I'm sure it's going to be a stellar cinematic experience.
77-minute comedy, baby. My favorite genre of movie. So join us for that at 1 o'clock tomorrow. We're 1 o'clock all this week again. So that's that. All right, my name's Bill Matz. That's Charlie O'Connor. Until tomorrow, you stay loose and sexy, Philly.
We all silly like the mayor.